This is a clip from one of our recent live streams. We stream live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. As a reminder, this is our second channel, Fish the Moment Live. Our main channel, Fish the Moment, is where we have all of our highly edited YouTube content. We spend 30 to 40 hours a week producing one YouTube video that's posted on the Fish the Moment channel every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Standard Time. These videos include on-the-water footage of us actually fishing, as well as detailed instruction on how to use electronics, fish offshore, and a lot of other great information. Make sure to check out the Fish the Moment channel if you enjoy the content on this channel. The second thing that we do to generate more big bites in the summertime is kind of cliche, I know, but it's using bigger baits. That's kind of like an overused concept of bigger baits equal bigger fish. It's not always the case, obviously, but what I found is that there's actually a threshold with big baits nowadays. Big baits are now very relative, just because guys are getting used to throwing bigger and bigger baits and bass are getting more accustomed to them. Back in the day, a big bait used to be a Strike King 6XD crankbait. It's 4 inches long. That was a big crankbait, especially compared to some of the older crankbaits guys were throwing back in the day. But now, this mini Magnum Ben Parker flutter spoon is almost considered small when fishing offshore. 6.5 inches. I find that fish sometimes won't even eat this bait, even though it's 6.5 inches long, because it's too small for those fish. They won't react to it. I actually throw the 8-inch version even more often than this one because it triggers more big bites. Same thing with that giant Big M 7.5 Megabass crankbait. It's the biggest crankbait on the market you can get, and yeah, it's pricey, but it's worth it. It gets more bites. The bigger baits, and I'm talking like oversized baits, really big baits, will generate more of those big bites. Now, you're not going to get nearly as many bites on them, and I only pull those baits out when I really want to go after a kicker, catch one big fish. But especially if you're on an offshore school or fishing offshore in general, throwing it just a lot bigger, bulkier bait will get you more bites. Very cliche, very obvious, but think oversized in the summertime. Would you agree there, Randy?
Yeah, it's a little bit different in the shallow water application because for me, from my experience in catching big fish in shallow water in the summertime, there's only one bait that I go big with. Everything else, if I'm using, crankbaits or, jigs or that type of stuff, I'm staying with the normal sizes. A lot of times I even go downsize later in the summer, particularly like when you get into August and September, I downsize everything. I'll go to like a little 1/4 ounce spinnerbait. I'll downsize my crankbaits. I'll go to like to a trick worm, something like that. And once you do that, when you catch a big fish, it's more out of the haphazard. It's more just like it's a random occurrence. You can't really target specifically big fish. In my experience, once that water temperature hits 80 degrees in the summertime of the year, and you're dealing with shallow water cover, and when I'm talking about shallow water cover, I'm talking about primarily that cover in anywhere between 1 to 4 foot of water, stained water visibility of 1 to 2 foot in that range. The only time that I have found by upsizing to a big bait that will actually up your odds, the percentages of catching a big fish and your grade of big fish will come up, is going to a big worm. And I'm talking about, my favorite is that Zoom 12-inch Old Monster Magnum. They make a 10-inch Old Monster. They make a 12-inch Old Monster Old Monster Magnum worm. And I have seen that they'll bite that bait, I guess because it doesn't telegraph itself. It's quiet, it's silent, looks like a big snake. But that, guys, is one of my top baits. If you are flipping any type of flooded cover in the summertime, like any type of willows, bushes, flooded trees, whatever, or even if you're fishing shallow laydowns, you can take that big 10, 12-inch worm and it goes sort of against what we just talked about, speed a little bit. I put that big worm on a fairly light sinker, like a 3/16 or a 1/4 ounce sinker, because I actually think that worm is so big it looks like a big snake. And I'll pitch it in and around that shallow cover and just work it real slow through that. Sometimes I'll even swim it. I'll pitch it up in the lay down. If the water's dirty, sometimes in the summertime of the year, even in shallow water, you can catch those bass just by swimming that worm in dirty water, just like 12 inches underneath the water. I've done that. I used to whack them at Truman Lake doing that. Back when Truman was really good and there was a lot of standing timber in the lake, I'd go up there with that 10 and 12-inch worm and fish those shallow, dirty, standing fence rows and tree rows with that thing and just catch a bunch of big ones. But for me, that's the only thing that really works that'll give you reproducible results is that big worm in shallow water. If I try to upgrade and go to like with a big bladed spinner bait or like a big 3-inch square bill crankbait, a lot of times something that displaces a lot of water, I don't get near the bites that I do if I go to that big worm. That big worm it will get you a good bite in the summertime of the year in shallow water.
I was saying that he brought that to light about using only the big worm up shallow with big baits. It's just interesting to see the difference between the offshore fishing and the shallow fishing, and that I feel like I need to really upsize my baits to consistently get bigger fish, where Randy says basically just go to that big worm or then stay with your standard baits. I've been going to bigger square bills, a bigger profile spinnerbait in the summer, and obviously it hasn't been as successful for me. That's why I fish offshore now, because I didn't know what I was doing apparently. But now I do, so now I'm going to be dangerous, Randy. Any more of these shallow water challenges we have going on? You are 3-0 when we go fish up shallow in these single bait challenges. So I need to step my game up a little bit. I'm going to keep going at you at these shallow challenges though, because I need to take one of these eventually, and we're actually going to Table Rock later this week to do a top water challenge. So either I'm just don't know when to give up and I should just take you offshore for a challenge just to build my confidence back up, or what, but I'm going to keep after it.
Yeah, I can't wait till this week. We like I said, this is our 4th shallow challenge in a row, and yeah, we're due to go fish for some suspended deep bass in one of these here pretty quick, But you got to remember, guys, I was 0-7 with him last summer when we were doing all the deep stuff. So it's just the universe has a way of balancing itself.
For sure. And it's interesting, even I found that, just as a little tangent, when we were doing those shallow versus offshore challenges, I would feel like I was better off when I was forced to fish offshore, because when I have the option to go fish up shallow, I do worse. I honestly don't catch them as well as if I just force myself to fish offshore all day. And I think that that's something that's very telling from these challenges as well, that I kind of want to, maybe touch on at some point, is like, I'm trying to put myself in your wheelhouse. I'm trying to beat you at your own game, which is not going to work. I've seen that now after 3 challenges here. So if I'm going to have a chance to win, I either need to do something that's off the wall shallow that you're not doing, and that's still risky, or we need to go back to the shallow versus offshore to give myself a better chance. I'm not sure what the best idea is, but I'm going to keep grinding out for a few more challenges, see if I can steal one of them from you.
Well, I think a lot of people, that if you guys watch the videos, Johnny and I, we don't get any practice. We really don't know what's going on at the lake. By the time we get everything set up and I usually have to go pick up Elijah. So we got short days. We're like on the water for like 5 or 6 hours and don't know anything about it. So when you're like that, sometimes you hit on, how to catch them real quick. And sometimes you need more time. And so a lot of it is just, again, it's random if you get on them or not.
For sure. One question I did want to answer really quick, it was from Guy B. He says, I wonder if snapping a tube like Randy described would work for the pesky little spotted bass. That's from Gaston, North Carolina. I've actually tried that offshore, Guy, for those spotted bass. I don't catch the fish on the spotted bass in a tube nearly as well as I do on a hair jig. Just pick up this is a Cumberland Pro Preacher prayer jig. It's a 1/2 ounce. That works a lot better for me on spotted bass. I don't know why. It'll actually get really big spotted bass to bite it, but I have not been as successful getting those fish to eat the tube, the spotted bass to eat the tube, except for maybe like right in the post spawn, but most of the year they don't like that tube for me. Have you had any success with that, Randy?
No, I've done that a little bit with like hopping swim baits off the bottom for spotted bass, but not for tubes. It seems like for something you got to have a good smallmouth population for that tube to work really good.
For sure. And another question from Guy says, is the speed on the Magnum crankbaits only good for the spotted or for the largemouth? No, I catch big spotted bass and smallmouth on Table Rock on this big crankbait here, burning it. So all 3 species will eat that thing, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
Bill
Randy.
was asking real quick, hey Bill, about what line type size you use with the big worms. Normally I'm using anywhere between 17 to 25 pound test. Seagar and Vizex, depending upon the cover, but it's normally at least 17 on there.
Yep, for sure. Oh, by the way, one more comment from Aaron here. He says, we need some northeast lessons, some lessons for up north on natural lakes. Well, guys, I finally got your back. You northern guys out there who have been complaining, I'm just kidding, but who've been asking for some instruction on northern lakes. Most of our audience is not from up north, so we don't talk about it as much as we probably should. If you enjoy our videos and want more in-depth instruction about bass fishing, check out our virtual seminars on fishthemoment.com. On our virtual seminars page, you'll see all of our upcoming live seminars, including our advanced summer jig fishing seminar focused on both offshore and shallow jig fishing, where Andy and I will give you our best secrets in terms of bait modifications, areas, retrieves, and a lot of other great information. You can also find recordings of our past seminars. We'll be updating our library every single week with past seminars that will help you become a better bass fisherman. Check them out on fishthemoment.com.
Yeah, it's man, it's a different world up there though. It's sort of like fishing down south in Florida. It's like Florida fishing and New York fishing for smallmouth is completely different than fishing man-made impoundments. And there's a lot of different tricks to know about how to catch them up there. I mean, I think even more so up north than there is down south. So it'll be a good time, man.
For sure, it's kind of cool because I grew up in Wisconsin, so I learned how to do all of the fishing up there. And coming down south, it was completely different. Like the fishing is so different down here, and I had to relearn how to fish literally from scratch. You almost have to relearn how to fish because bass behave differently, forage is different, everything is different. And we'll cover all that in the seminar, but pretty interesting there. Awesome. So let's kind of jump back into the main topic tonight. Went off on a big tangent. So covered the first two topics, which were if you want to trigger big bass in the summertime, first you need to use fast moving or fast falling baits. Second is you need to use a big bait, which is again kind of cliche. Thanks for checking out the video. If you made it this far, we'd really appreciate if you left a like on the video. It helps us out with the YouTube algorithm and gets these videos out to more people. Also consider subscribing. It's free and it lets you get notifications of every single one of our videos that we upload daily. Finally, remember to check out the main Fish the Moment channel, where we actually have on-the-water fishing footage as well as detailed graphics on electronics, offshore fishing, bass behavior, and a lot of other great information. Thanks for checking out the video, and we'll see you all in the next one.